The golden son, the family favorite. He thought he knew everything about us until he fell in love with the one person who knew the truth we buried.
Grandma's house in Cincinnati smelled like pine and brown sugar ham, the kind of smell that made you forget about everything wrong in the world. Snow blanketed the front yard where we'd set up our makeshift goalposts with lawn chairs, and cousins spilled out of every room like the house was too small to contain our noise. Uncle Fred's Mercedes crunched into the driveway around 3, and we stampeded to the window. "Fred's here!" someone yelled, and Grandma actually ran. This 72-year-old woman moved faster than I'd seen all year.
He stepped out looking like a finance magazine cover. Cashmere coat, leather gloves, that $1 million smile that made you understand why every single woman at church asked about him. 6'2" of pure charisma and old money confidence. There's my favorite people. He scooped up my little cousin Jade like she weighed nothing, distributed hugs like a politician who actually meant it. Within 10 minutes, he was in the snow with us, dress pants and all, playing football. He nutmegged my brother Marcus so badly that Marcus just stood there, betrayed, while we howled. Later, when we collapsed on the porch drinking hot chocolate, Uncle Fred's smile flickered, just for a second. "So, heads up, I'm bringing someone tomorrow. Maria. She's special." Aunt Denise's eyebrows shot up. "Special how?" "You'll meet her," he said, and that smile locked back into place, but his fingers tightened around his mug. "Just be yourselves, okay? She's important to me."
In 8 years, Uncle Fred had never brought anyone home. Grandma watched him from the window, and something passed across her face I couldn't read. We should have paid attention to that look.
Maria arrived the next morning in Uncle Fred's passenger seat, and the moment she stepped out, the energy shifted. She wasn't what anyone expected. Mid-30s, maybe, plain in a deliberate way. No makeup, simple jeans and a gray sweater, brown hair pulled back tight. Not ugly, not beautiful, just neutral. The kind of person you'd forget in a crowd. Except you couldn't forget her, because she looked at you like she was cataloging your secrets. "Everyone, this is Maria," Uncle Fred said, his hand hovering near her back, but not quite touching. "Lovely to meet you all," Maria said, flat. No warmth, no nervousness, no effort to charm. She shook hands like she was completing a transaction. Aunt Denise tried first. "So, Maria, what do you do?" "Research." "Oh, what kind?" "Various kinds." The conversation died there. Maria didn't ask about anyone, didn't ooh and ah over the decorations, didn't compliment Grandma's cooking. She just sat in the corner of the living room, watching. Especially watching Grandma. I was 17 and home for my first semester of college, old enough to notice the weird stuff. Maria's eyes tracked Grandma like a documentary filmmaker observing a subject. When Grandma laughed, Maria didn't. When Grandma spoke, Maria leaned forward slightly, absorbing every word. Uncle Fred seemed smaller around her. The light in him dimmed. He kept glancing at her like he was checking if she was okay, if she approved, if she was going to do something.
"She's strange," Marcus whispered to me while we were in the kitchen. "Beyond strange," I said. "Fred's acting weird too." "You think she's got some kind of hold on him?" I didn't know what to think. Christmas dinner was Grandma's masterpiece. Ham, mac and cheese, collards, sweet potato pie, the works. 23 of us crammed around tables we'd pushed together, loud and chaotic and perfect. Grandma held court at the head, telling stories like she always did. She got to one about Uncle Fred as a kid, maybe 7 years old, stealing cookies before dinner. "Your daddy was so mad," Grandma laughed, pointing at Uncle Fred. "Richard chased you around this very house, threatened to—" "That wasn't Richard," Maria said. The table went silent. Grandma's smile froze. "Excuse me?" "The man who chased him wasn't Richard, it was James. Fred's father died when Fred was 6. You could have heard a pin drop in the snow outside. Grandma's face went hard. "How would you know that?" Maria met her eyes without flinching. "I know a lot of things." Uncle Fred put his fork down carefully, like it might shatter. Maria. I'm just correcting the record, Maria said, still looking at Grandma. Accuracy matters. Who are you? Aunt Denise demanded. Uncle Fred stood up. Can we not do this, please? It's Christmas.
But the warmth had bled out of the room. Grandma excused herself, barely touched her pie. Uncle Fred followed her into the kitchen, leaving Maria alone with the rest of us. She didn't look uncomfortable. She looked patient, like she was waiting for something to break. The next 2 days were torture. The aunts cornered Uncle Fred every chance they got. "She's disrespectful," Aunt Denise hissed. "She doesn't even try to fit in," Aunt Paul hatted. "What does she want from you, Fred? Is it the money?" Uncle Fred kept defending her, kept smiling that tight smile. "Maria understands me in ways you don't, in ways no one else does." "Then help us understand," Aunt Denise said. "Who is she? What does she do? Why won't you tell us anything?" "It's complicated."
"Then uncomplicate it." But he wouldn't. He just kept saying Maria was important, that she'd helped him, that she saw him clearly. The words sounded rehearsed, like he'd been practicing them. Meanwhile, Maria kept watching Grandma. At breakfast, at dinner, when we opened presents. Those neutral eyes tracked every movement, every expression. Grandma avoided her, actually avoided her, in her own house. I'd never seen Grandma back down from anyone. Uncle Fred looked exhausted, caught between these two women like a rope in a tug of war. The smile was gone now. He barely ate, barely talked. On the third night, I couldn't sleep. The house was too full of tension, the air too thick. I got up to get water and heard voices from the guest room where Uncle Fred and Maria were staying.
I shouldn't have listened. I listened anyway. "You can't hide from it forever," Maria's voice, sharp and clear through the door. "She owes you the truth." "She's my mother." Uncle Fred's voice cracked like ice breaking. "Is she?" Silence. Long and terrible. Then Uncle Fred, barely a whisper. "Don't do this. Not here. Not now." "Then when, Fred? How many more years? How many more Christmases pretending everything's fine?" "She raised me. She loved me. That's what matters." "The lies are what matter. The erasure. You have a right to know who you are." "I know who I am." "Do you?" A door slammed. Footsteps. I pressed myself against the wall as Uncle Fred stormed past, didn't even see me. He went outside in his t-shirt and pajama pants into the December cold. I stood there in the dark hallway, my heart hammering. Is she? What did that mean?
I couldn't let it go. The next morning, while everyone was at church, I stayed back claiming a headache. I knew Uncle Fred kept some papers in his car. He was always working, even on vacation. I found his laptop bag in the trunk. I wasn't proud of snooping, but I needed to understand. Inside was a manila folder labeled Whitmore Investigations. My hands shook as I opened it. Maria Whitmore, licensed private investigator, Columbus, Ohio. The folder was full of documents, birth certificates, multiple versions with different information, hospital records from Cincinnati General 1982, adoption papers that had been sealed, then unsealed by court order, pages of notes in Maria's precise handwriting. And then I found it. A summary report dated 6 months ago. Client Frederick James Thompson hired Whitmore Investigations in January 2023 to research irregularities in his birth records following routine background check for executive promotion. Investigation reveals: birth certificate filed 3 months after stated birth date. Hospital records show no delivery for Sandra Thompson on date listed. Subject's birth mother was actually Rose Thompson, née Williams, younger sister of Sandra Thompson. Rose Thompson died in childbirth December 15, 1982. Sandra Thompson assumed custody, refiled birth certificate with herself listed as mother.
Subject legally adopted, but records sealed by family court, never disclosed to subject. I read it 3 times before it sunk in. Uncle Fred wasn't Grandma's son. He was her nephew, and he'd only found out 2 years ago.
They came back from church to find me sitting at the dining room table with the folder open in front of me. Uncle Fred went pale. Jamie? I know, I said. Maria appeared behind him. She didn't look surprised or angry, just resigned. What's going on? Aunt Denise demanded, coming in behind them. One by one, the family filtered in. Uncle Fred tried to grab the folder, but I'd already made my choice. Maria is a private investigator, I said. Uncle Fred hired her 2 years ago. The room exploded with questions, but Maria raised one hand, and somehow everyone stopped. I think it's time, she said quietly, looking at Uncle Fred. He sank into a chair, put his head in his hands.
Maria laid it out clinically, efficiently. The birth certificate irregularities, the hospital records, the adoption that was never disclosed. She placed copies of documents on the table like evidence in a trial. Rose Thompson was Sandra's younger sister, Maria said. She died giving birth to Fred. Sandra raised him as her own, legally adopted him, but never told him the truth. All eyes turned to Grandma. She stood in the doorway, one hand on the frame like she needed support. Her face was stone. Is this true, Mama? Aunt Denise asked. Grandma's voice came out hoarse. I did it to protect him. Protect me? Uncle Fred's head snapped up. You lied to me for 43 years? Rose was gone. You needed a mother. I needed the truth. You were 3 months old. What was I supposed to do? Let you grow up knowing your mother died because you were born? Let you carry that weight? That wasn't your choice to make. The family stood frozen, watching their golden child, the man who never raised his voice, never made waves, finally break. I spent my whole life wondering why I didn't look like Dad, Uncle Fred said, his voice shaking. Why I was taller than everyone. Why I didn't have Grandpa's nose or your eyes. And you let me wonder. You let me feel like something was wrong with me. Nothing was wrong with you, Grandma whispered. You were perfect. You are perfect. But I'm not yours. The words hung in the air like smoke. Grandma's face crumpled. You've always been mine. From the moment I held you, my mother held me first, my actual mother, and you erased her. Where are her pictures, her belongings, anything that proved she existed?
You wiped her out, Uncle Fred said. Quieter now, but somehow more devastating. My mother died giving me life, and you made sure I'd never know her name, never know her face, never know anything about where I came from. I did what I thought was right, Grandma said, tears streaming now. I loved you so much, but you loved your lie more.
Uncle Fred stood up. The man who'd walked in 3 days ago, bright and warm and beloved, was gone. In his place stood someone hollowed out, someone I barely recognized. I can't do this, he said. I can't sit in this house and pretend everything's fine. I can't look at you and not see 43 years of deception. Fred, please, Aunt Denise started. Did you know? He asked, looking around at his aunts. Did any of you know? They shook their heads, and I believed them. They looked as gutted as he did. I need time, Uncle Fred said. I need to figure out who I am without all these lies. This is still your family, Aunt Paula said. Is it? He grabbed his coat. Because I don't know what family means anymore. Maria stood up, collected her things efficiently. No one tried to stop her. She'd done what she'd come to do. She was a good person, Maria said, pausing at the door. She pulled a photograph from her purse and placed it on the table. Rose Thompson, 23 years old, art teacher. By all accounts, she was excited to be a mother. She wanted you very much.
The photo showed a young black woman with Uncle Fred's eyes and Uncle Fred's smile, holding her pregnant belly in front of a Christmas tree. Uncle Fred picked it up with shaking hands. It was the first time he'd ever seen his mother's face. He walked out without another word. Maria followed. The door closed. Grandma collapsed into a chair and wept. That was 8 weeks ago. Uncle Fred's chair sat empty at the kitchen table where we'd gathered for New Year's. No one sat in it. It felt wrong. He'd called me twice. Once from a hotel in Columbus, once from his condo in Chicago. Both times he sounded tired but steady. He'd started therapy. He'd hired a genealogist to learn more about Rose, about his biological father, about the half of himself that had been hidden. Maria's been incredible, he'd said during the second call. I know everyone hates her, but she's the only one who's been honest with me. She's helping me through this. Are you coming back? I'd asked. I don't know, Jamie. When I think about sitting at that table, looking at Grandma, I just feel angry. And I don't want to be angry anymore. But I'm not ready to forgive either. She's heartbroken. So am I. He'd sent Grandma a letter last week. I'd seen her reading it in her bedroom, tears dripping onto the paper. She wouldn't tell anyone what it said, but afterward she'd seemed a little less broken. This morning, a FedEx envelope arrived. Grandma's not doing well. I sent her a letter. I'm not cutting her off, but I need time. Years, maybe. I need to figure out who I am when everything I thought I knew is gone. 3 weeks after walking out of Grandma's house, Uncle Fred still wasn't sleeping. I know because he called me at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, voice hollow, asking questions that had no good answers. Did they all know? Did everyone sit around that table every Christmas knowing I was living a lie? I didn't have answers. Nobody did. But there was someone who did. Maria. But she had no idea he was related with Grandma until the Christmas visit. Fred watched her sleep that night. Maria, the woman who dismantled his entire existence with a manila folder and a private investigator's license. She looked peaceful, unburdened. He hated her for it. And he needed her for it. She knew everything about where he came from, more than he did, more than he might ever know. That imbalance was eating him alive. Who else knew? Maria didn't stir, but something did. A corner of leather peeking from her bag by the closet. Another folder. One she hadn't shown him. Fred's hands shook as he pulled it free. Inside were photographs, not copies, originals, edges worn soft with age. A young woman, maybe 19, with dark eyes and a smile that Fred recognized because he saw it in the mirror every morning. Rose, his mother, his real mother. There she was at graduation, at a birthday party, holding a baby, him, with an expression so full of love it physically hurt to look at.
She was beautiful. And Fred realized something that cracked him open. Grandma had these. She'd had them the whole time, kept them hidden while Fred placed flowers on her grave every year, mourning a woman whose face he'd never seen. He flipped through them with shaking hands. Rose laughing, Rose serious, Rose pregnant, one hand on her belly looking directly at the camera with something in her eyes that Fred couldn't name. Hope, maybe. Or fear. The last photo showed Rose in a hospital bed, exhausted but smiling, reaching for something just outside the frame. On the back, in faded blue ink, Linda, call me when he's older. 513-555-0147. Fred pulled out his phone. The number was still active.
Fred didn't know it yet, but that phone call would lead him somewhere he couldn't come back from. There are truths that clarify, and there are truths that destroy. This was the second kind. He couldn't make the call inside, couldn't risk Maria waking up, stopping him, filtering the truth through her careful investigator's voice. He needed it raw. The phone rang 4 times. Hello? Is this Linda? Linda Morrison? Who's asking? Fred's throat closed. How do you introduce yourself to a ghost? My name is Fred Harrison. I think you knew my mother, Rose Harrison. The silence on the other end stretched so long Fred thought she'd hung up. Oh my God, you're alive.
Linda had thought Fred died with Rose. That's what Dorothy, Grandma, had told everyone. Mother and baby, complications, tragic loss. Linda had mourned them both for 40 years. She asked for you. Every day for 3 days she asked when she could see her baby. They told her you're in NICU, that she needed to rest first. She believed them. Who told her that? Dorothy, your grandmother. She told the hospital Rose had signed adoption papers. She said Rose was too young, too unstable. The nurses believed her. Fred's vision tunneled. Rose died thinking they'd taken you away from her. She died believing she'd failed you. But she hadn't signed anything. She wanted you. God, she wanted you so badly. Fred's hand gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles went white.
Why didn't anyone stop her? Why didn't you? I was 18. I didn't know what Dorothy had done until years later. And by then, what could I do? You were gone. Rose was dead. I thought maybe Dorothy was right, that you were better off not knowing. But Linda said something else. Something that made Fred's blood run cold. I wasn't the only one there that day. There's someone else who knows the truth. Someone from your family. Who? Jerome, Dorothy's son. He drove her to the hospital. He heard everything. Uncle Jerome. The fun uncle. The one who told stories and snuck Fred beer when he was 16. The one who'd looked Fred in the eye at Christmas and said nothing, while Fred's world was built on lies.
Fred didn't call ahead. He drove straight to Jerome's house in Columbus, arrived just after lunch, and knocked until Jerome answered. Jerome, Fred, Jesus, you knew. Jerome's face collapsed. Come inside. They sat in Jerome's kitchen, coffee neither of them touched cooling between them. I was 25. Mom called me, said Rose was in labor, needed a ride to the hospital. I drove them. I waited. And Rose was weak, bleeding complications. Mom went in to see her while I waited outside. I heard them through the door. Jerome's hands shook. Mom told Rose she was too young to be a mother, that she'd ruin your life, that the best thing Rose could do was let Mom raise you properly. Rose was crying, saying she wanted to try, but Mom just kept pushing. You'll thank me one day. He'll thank me one day.
And you said nothing. I was 25. She was Mom. She always knew best. And Rose did die, Fred. Maybe Mom was right. Maybe you were better off. Fred stood so fast his chair fell backward. Better off not knowing my own mother? Better off living a lie? We gave you a good life. We! The word hung between them like a blade. Who else knew? Fred, who else knew? Denise. She found some papers when she was helping Mom move 5 years ago. Birth certificates, hospital records. I told her to let it go. We both decided it was better for you not to know.
Aunt Denise, the therapist, the one who'd told Fred at Christmas that she was worried about him. She'd known for 5 years. Fred walked out of Jerome's house and didn't look back. His entire support system had been complicit in the lie. Every hug, every I love you, every family dinner where they'd asked how he was doing, all of it tainted by the truth they'd swallowed. Maria was waiting when Fred got home. She'd found the empty folder. She knew. You called Linda. You knew I would. Maria crossed the room slowly, carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. How do you feel? I don't know what I feel. That's the problem. She reached for his hand. He let her take it. For a moment, they stood there in the fading light, and Fred wanted desperately to believe this was real, that Maria's touch meant what it seemed to mean, that someone, somewhere, loved him for who he actually was. Talk to me. Everyone knew. Jerome, Denise, probably half the family. They all sat there every Christmas, watching me be the golden nephew, and they said nothing. I'm sorry. Are you? Fred pulled his hand away. You knew all of this before you met me, didn't you? You knew exactly what you'd find when you started digging. Why did you take this case, Maria? What are you really after? Maria's expression didn't change. That investigator's mask. Calm and impenetrable. You want the truth? I want to know why the woman I'm sleeping with knows more about my life than I do. Because Rose was my aunt. Dorothy Harrison stole my cousin from my family, and I wanted him to know the truth. The apartment went silent. Fred stared at her.
What? We're family, Fred. We've always been family. And in that moment, Fred realized he didn't know anything at all. Not about his past, not about his family, not even about the woman standing in front of him, claiming to be his cousin, while she'd shared his bed for 2 years. Everything was a lie. Everyone had an agenda, and Fred was the only one who hadn't known the game was being played.
Maria sat down on the couch, composed, like she'd been waiting for this moment. Rose Harrison was my mother's younger sister. When Rose died, my family tried to get custody of you. You were ours, our blood, our family. But Grandma, Dorothy had already changed your birth certificate. She claimed you as her biological son. By the time anyone realized what she'd done, it was too late. My family was poor, immigrant. We couldn't afford lawyers. We couldn't fight her. Fred sank into the chair opposite her. I grew up knowing I had a cousin out there somewhere, a boy stolen from us. My mother cried about it every year on Rose's birthday. He's out there, she'd say. Somewhere, he's out there, and he doesn't even know we exist.
So you became a private investigator to find me?
Yes.
And everything since then? Us? Was that part of the plan too? Maria's mask cracked, just slightly. I found you 3 years ago. I watched you for months before I introduced myself. I needed to know if you were worth saving or if Dorothy had turned you into something hollow. And you were kind, generous. You smiled like you meant it, even when no one was watching. You called your grandmother every Sunday. You played football with your little cousins in the snow. Her voice softened. You were good, Fred. Despite everything, you were good. And I thought you deserved to know the truth. So you seduced me? I approached you professionally. You're the one who asked me to dinner after I closed your case. Fred remembered. 6 months in, after Maria had traced his family tree back 4 generations, he'd been so grateful, so impressed by her work. He'd asked her out. She'd said yes. Did you ever plan to tell me we were related? Cousins aren't that close, genetically. It's legal. And yes, I plan to tell you. After you knew about Rose. After you'd processed the adoption. I didn't want to overwhelm you with everything at once. Fred stood, started pacing. I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know if Grandma loved me or just loved controlling me. I don't know if my aunts and uncles cared about me or just felt guilty. And I don't know if you love me or if I'm just some rescue mission you've been running for 3 years. Maria, Fred, everyone who claims to love me has lied. Everyone. So tell me, Maria, how do I know you're any different? Maria stood, crossed to him, and for the first time since Fred had met her, he saw her cry. You don't. That's the truth, Fred. You don't know. You can't know. Love requires trust, and your trust has been shattered. So you have to choose. Choose what? Whether you believe me when I say the past 2 years weren't fake. Whether you believe me when I say I love you. Not the cousin I came to find. Not the successful finance guy. Not the golden nephew. You. The man who's terrified and angry and breaking apart, but still standing. That's who I love. Fred's breath hitched. I found you to give you the truth. I stayed because of who you are. And if you can't believe that, if you can't take that leap, then I understand. But don't you dare say nobody loves you. Don't you dare.
Fred broke. 40 years of being the perfect nephew, the successful son, the man with the golden smile, it all shattered. He collapsed against Maria, sobbing, and she held him like he was the only thing keeping her upright, too. Fred, through tears, I don't know how to trust anyone anymore. Maria, fierce. Then learn. Start small. Start with me. I'm right here, Fred. I'm not going anywhere. And for the first time in 3 weeks, Fred believed something. Maybe not everything, maybe not forever. But in that moment, he believed her.
2 days later, Fred sat at his laptop at 3 a.m., composing an email. The draft had 17 different versions. 2. Dorothy Harrison, Jerome Harrison, Denise Williams, extended family. You sat at that table every Christmas knowing I was living a lie. You hugged me, told me you loved me, asked about my life, all while keeping the truth locked away like I was too fragile to handle it. I'm done. Don't call me, don't email, don't send cards or letters or money. I don't want anything from people who thought lying to me for 40 years was love. His cursor hovered over the send button. 1 click. That's all it would take. He hadn't heard her come in. I'm cutting them off. All of them. I know. They don't deserve me. Maybe not. She sat down next to him, read the email. Is this what you want? Or is this what your anger wants? What's the difference?
One you'll regret, one you won't. Fred's hand shook on the mouse. They lied to me. Yes, they let me worship a woman who erased my real mother from existence. Yes, so why shouldn't I cut them off? Because you're not them. You don't want to be the person who burns bridges. You want to be the person who builds new ones. What if I can't forgive them? Then don't. Forgiveness is optional, but closure isn't. And cutting them off without giving them a chance to explain, that's not closure. That's running.
Fred deleted the email, wrote a new one. Subject: I want to meet my mother's family. To Maria: you said Rose had a sister, your mother. That means I have an aunt I've never met. Cousins, maybe. People who knew Rose, who loved her, who wanted me. Can you introduce me? I'm not ready to talk to Dorothy's families at maybe never, but I want to know Rose's family, my family. I want to know where I actually come from. Fred. He sent it before he could change his mind. Maria's phone buzzed. She read it, smiled through tears. She's been waiting 40 years for this email.
Scene: a small house in Dayton, Ohio, 2 weeks later. Fred's sister, Fred's Aunt Carmen, lived in a small house in Dayton with photos covering every available surface. When Fred knocked, she opened the door, took one look at him, and burst into tears.
Dios mío, you look just like her.
She pulled him into a hug that smelled like vanilla and something else Fred couldn't name. Safety, maybe. Inside, the house was full. Carmen's children, Fred's cousins, their kids, a whole branch of family Fred never knew existed. And every single one of them looked at him like he was a miracle.
We tried to find you. For years we tried. But Dorothy had changed everything. Your name, your birth certificate. By the time we had money for lawyers, you were 10 years old and thriving. We thought maybe she was right, that you were better off.
I wasn't better off not knowing my mother.
No, you weren't.
She led him to a wall covered in photos. Rose at every age. Rose as a baby, a child, a teenager. Rose pregnant, glowing, one hand on her belly. She was so excited to meet you. She'd picked out a name, Federico, after our father. She had plans. She was going to go back to school, get her degree, give you everything. What was she like? She was stubborn, brilliant. She loved to sing. Terrible voice, but she didn't care. She wanted to be a teacher. She volunteered at the children's hospital even when she could barely afford rent.
She pulled out a box. Inside, Rose's journals, her high school diploma, a baby blanket she knitted for Fred, never delivered.
She would have loved you so much. She did love you. Every day she carried you, she loved you.
Fred held the blanket, blue and white, slightly unraveling, smelling faintly of cedar. His mother had made this for him.
I wish I'd known her.
You can still know her through us, through her journals, through the stories.
And for the first time since Christmas, Fred felt something other than anger. He felt belonging.
What will he do now, knowing he's bonding with his long-hidden family? They even wants to let him know his late mom through them. If he had known what they have in plans for him that day, he would never have stepped in that house.
6 months later, Fred stood at Rose's grave with Maria beside him. The headstone was simple. Rose Marie Harrison, 1966 to 1985. Beloved sister, daughter, mother. Fred placed flowers, white roses, because Carmen said they were her favorite. I haven't talked to Grandma. I know. Jerome called last week. I didn't answer. That's okay. The narrator, my little cousin, keeps texting, checking in, not pushing, just being there. That's good. You need that.
Fred had maintained tentative contact with the younger cousins, the ones who hadn't known, hadn't been complicit. It was something. Small, but something. Carmen invited us for Thanksgiving. Do you want to go? Yeah, I do. He crouched down, touched the headstone. I don't know if I'll ever forgive her, Grandma, for what she took from me. From you. You don't have to. Everyone keeps saying that. You don't have to forgive her. But then what? I just carry this anger forever? No. You decide what kind of man you want to be with the truth you've got. You can be the man who was stolen and spends his life angry about it, or you can be the man who was stolen and chooses to build something new. Not for Dorothy. Not for me. For you.
Fred stood, took Maria's hand. I'm choosing you, my real family, Carmen, her kids, the people who wanted me from the beginning. And Dorothy's family? I don't know yet. Maybe someday. Maybe never. But that's my choice to make, not theirs. Mine.
They walked back to the car, hand in hand. Fred didn't look back at the grave. He'd said what he needed to say. The rest would come in time. Or it wouldn't. And for the first time in his life, Fred was okay with not knowing. He'd spent 40 years living someone else's truth. Now, he was building his own. 3 months later, Fred sent one email to Dorothy Harrison. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation. Just 3 lines. I have a family now, the one you tried to erase. I'm learning who I am with them. Maybe someday we can talk, but not today. Federico. He used the name Rose had chosen for him, the one she'd whispered to Carmen the day before she died, the one that had been stolen along with everything else. Dorothy never responded, and Fred stopped waiting for her to.
Some fractures don't heal. Some bridges burn. Some truths cost more than you ever wanted to pay.
But Fred had learned something that year. Sitting at Rose's grave with Maria beside him and Carmen's family waiting at home. You can't choose the family you're born into. You can't change the lies they tell. But you can choose who you become after the truth comes out. And Fred chose to be free. He only chose to be free. Is he finally free for real, having discovered a lot lately within his family tree? If you want to hear what happens next, subscribe and turn on notifications.